Sorry, my internet froze. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of DojoLIVE. Introducing my co-host is Carlos Ponce, who is in Mexico City right now.
Hello. Hi.
And
There you go.
Tulio and I are right now in the beautiful city of Hermosillo, Sonora. Right now, we're for the team building week. He's behind me, so.
Hi, everybody.
So today we have Rawlison Rivera, who is the CTO of Cohesity. With over 15 years of experience in the IT industry, Rawlison has devoted much of his professional career to the design and enterprise architectures of physical, virtual, and cloud-based infrastructures based on VMware, Microsoft, and other leading technologies. We're very happy to have you here, Rawlison. Can you, before we get into the topic, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, about the company of Cohesity?
Sure, absolutely. Thank you for having me. Again, Rawlison Rivera. I have spent a lot of time in the industry, predominantly known for being somewhat of a VMware veteran, since I spent a lot of time in my career there. Now I'm at Cohesity. Cohesity is what is identified today as the leading hyperconverged for secondary storage company, which you do a lot of really, really cool stuff to help the world get around and make things a lot better. But we are evolving and continue to evolve into many other things. So there's no, per se, one specific description of Cohesity, but one of the things that we do is focus around hyperconverged sort of secondary storage for applications and data. That's
Great.
a mouthful, but that's good.
So today's topic is enterprise tech's biggest data problem. Can you talk a little bit about that?
So, for a long time, specifically as the sort of world started changing and we got around this sort of digital transformation and the internet became what it is and we all started owning 5 different devices instead of just one computer, the amount of information, data, and everything that's being generated has become somewhat uncontrollable in a way that it's almost not human possible to manage, maintain, and deal with information in such a way. So this is affecting the major enterprise companies. The larger the corporation it is, the bigger the problem becomes. And it's affecting more than just business. So we want to kind of get into that sort of topic and cover that.
All right. So quick question. First of all, where are you right now?
I'm in Las Vegas, AWS reInvent.
Okay, cool. So I know that you're announcing something there today.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So today we're announcing a couple of capabilities that we introduced to our platform. One of them is the ability to accelerate the adoption of hybrid cloud as everyone keeps moving towards a successful migration to AWS and some of the other hybrid cloud options that are available. But we're announcing now the ability to deliver cloud-native backup protection capabilities for applications that are natively running on AWS. We also have introduced the ability to integrate with Snowball, so have the ability to actually have, for the bigger files, so these corporations that are moving larger files, we have the ability to now connect to these sort of services that AWS provides, and it makes it really easy to sort of kind of move on to that particular process. At the same time, we're also announcing the ability to sort of facilitate and help the life cycle for disaster recovery. Obviously, now that everyone is utilizing cloud for more than just tests and running some native actual applications. For disaster recovery, the public clouds have become a very, very compelling option. And now we're adding a lot of automation to simplify the way in which disaster recovery can be performed and done into these public clouds, particularly here in AWS. So we're announcing that we're very proud of that, and a lot of customers are kind of jumping onto that already.
Great. Can you tell us a little bit about if I'm a customer, why would I buy your service? What are you providing to me that's unique?
Well, let me tell you that, great question, fully loaded. We can spend like a whole day on this, but let me tell you just quickly what it is. So as a customer, here's why they're also even the top of today what we're discussing. So there's a problem in the enterprise, which I mentioned. And the problem we're trying to address here is mass data fragmentation. And that comes from the proliferation of data that exists everywhere. Typically, we have that problem in the enterprise. But as the hybrid cloud becomes what it is now, you move that problem now to the public cloud as well, which is the fact that you have multiple copies of data, there's multiple silos, things are kind of broken up. So you have all this proliferation of data everywhere. That becomes a really, really big problem. Cohesity delivers a platform that that lives in a public cloud natively and also on-premise. You can actually collapse the silos and actually take better management of your information data and do it more effectively in a way that is acceptable to the enterprise and some of the things that we can do today.
So, okay, so help me understand. I think the argument at some point, or at least a lot of people believe, well, that's why I have AWS, right? Because that solves my disparity problem. But what's unique about this partnership that enhances, what does it provide that they couldn't do on their own? Right.
So the automation, the integration, do things from a platform that can actually scale infinitely in a way that it introduces a much better way from an operation perspective, risk averse, allows an enterprise to use their information more effectively. One of the problems we have is the more data you have, the more data you want to sift through and kind of look to see what you can do with it. That's a problem today. It's not very easily done or manageable. So with our platform, you actually can do that anywhere. So you have information that sits in AWS, long-term retention, long-term archival kind of things of that nature. You no longer lose visibility into that data. Bring it in, do things that are more effective. Get a business advantage, provide better services, be able to meet better service level agreements. All of those kind of things that you can extract from actual information and data that you have. Now, instead of having it everywhere, which becomes a risk, we want to make sure that we sort of eliminate the risk of accessing and moving information around, because we all know what happens. So this is what sort of Cohesity has. Even though you have it in AWS as the sort of the infrastructure provider that you have in the cloud, we're the ones that provide the ability to provide the protection, the replication, the successful recovery, all in one platform, simplified, silos collapse, and eliminating a lot of the risks that exist today.
I think it's really fascinating. I mean, I've been around long enough to have seen when AWS itself was a disruption, right? Now it's no longer a disruption, but I'm noticing a trend, and maybe you can elaborate on this if you're seeing the same thing. Are you seeing more of these established technology companies partner with more innovative agile startups or smaller companies that have basically bringing new ideas to the marketplace? Are you seeing a trend in that? And why do you think that's happening the way it is?
I definitely see a trend in that, and the reason for that is as any customer adapts a newer approach to technology, whichever it is, adapting the public cloud is a challenge within itself. From a skill set perspective, this training, this people need to kind of understand and know what they're doing there. Now, what's happening is that with the hybrid cloud adoption, you have these corporations that have these products, these platforms that are adapted to, which are they know them very well. They like the services. They like what they're getting out of them. Now being able to have that in the public cloud helps them fix a problem that they address internally on premise, as well as it is in a public cloud. Now, kind of have that into one single platform, unified platform that can be accessed from anywhere. So actually be able to exist in both places without having to have any sort of different change in operations, being able to still have the access to the automation process. But the point is that your information, your data is sitting in the same platform without having to be moved multiple places, which eliminates the cost of having to move data from one place to another. Every time we want to move information from one place to another because we want to look at it, it requires mobility, it requires all these kinds of things that we want to do. But now you have it in a much safer manner that we can actually, take better advantage of it, or make better use of the information that you have.
Okay, so that's great. I'm very curious. I'm a big subscriber to the lean canvas and identifying your minimal viable product, minimal viable segment. When you guys were creating this product, was it always a target to be a partner for AWS, or did that come about through just validation and discovery of what's going on in the marketplace? I'm curious how you got here.
So from the very beginning, our founder, Mohit Aaron, who's kind of one of the big innovators and sort of big thinkers around distributed storage and some of the things we're doing here, from the very beginning, was to develop and create a platform from scratch, no shortcuts, not utilizing any public projects or anything like that. He wanted it done from scratch. And one of the things that we sort of have in our platform is that from the very beginning, it was cloud native, cloud integrated from the get-go. So it's not that as the adoption of hybrid cloud became the thing to do now, we sort of kind of bolted something else onto it. Our platform from the very beginning, from the core components, is cloud native, and it's to be accessible through AWS, some of the other cloud providers that are, Azure, and some of the other things that are available out there.
Okay, so it was. So
it wasn't an afterthought.
You went out to solve the problem itself, and then obviously a very strong partnership with AWS gets you a lot of access. How long has it taken to get there? What are some of the key lessons you think the company has learned, or you yourself have experienced in getting there? Our audience is always curious. How did you go from, you always look at the success, right? Here's where we are, but getting there, it's been a journey. I'm curious to hear about your experience in that journey.
Yeah, for us, luckily we went after eliminating a lot of the complexity that sort of exists in some of these platforms and products that connect to the cloud. Basically what happens is you introduce risks into the operating procedures of what that is. When dealing with data, that's a problem, because we obviously don't want to have something that is spilled and left out there in that particular way. So when it came to some of the core components from the very beginning, which sometimes come after, as you mentioned, as an afterthought, as another feature, something like that, there were very core components. Encryption, being able to have everything at rest and in flight as you're moving information to the public cloud or wherever it is. And those things were, sort of key to the design and sort of the approach and how the platform was developed for that. The problem in the learning curves that we have, well, not a problem, but the learning curve is this. Not everyone was ready to adopt a hybrid cloud strategy or public cloud strategy at once. So there's a lot of things that come into play there when it comes to security, operations, compliance, and all those different things. So we've kind of gone through that. But as customers kind of get into, it becomes more acceptable now that the quirks have been sort of worked out in most places. The adoption continues to grow, and we have a lot of customers that actually they're aggressive on the adoption of our product in AWS for some of these things as well.
So do you have like a core user group or core set of customers that you do validation when you're thinking through new ideas? How do you go about figuring out what's next on your roadmap? How do you plan for that as a company?
We have these sort of customer partner sort of what do we call them? I forget the name. What do we call them? TAP programs or partner. I forget what's the name of them.
A core user
sort of what are they called? Like I want to say like a resource group, but it's not. It's focus groups. Kind of like that's the kind of style, right?
Right.
Where we come discuss what are the challenges, what they would like to see, what they look at. So we kind of evolve in our roadmap based on that. There's a lot of innovation that goes in place also in-house, right? Our engineering teams are always kind of focusing and looking to what's next on what's going to affect, in particular, this particular space. One of the things that we recently did is that we released, we performed a study, because obviously this was something that hadn't been done yet, how the proliferation of data, what we call mass data fragmentation, is affecting or impacting companies beyond just the technology itself. So we released something recently around that and understood and learned through the survey that the impact of this particular problem, which is everyone in the enterprise is facing it, it's going to affect more than just technology itself. It has to do with turnover. It has to do with culture. It has to do with the morale of the teams and all that kind of stuff that's within the environments that they work in. So it goes pretty far away.
Cool. Hey, Carlos, is it time? Is it time to activate the chat bot for some audience questions?
It is.
I can keep going, but I'd like to open it up because this is a really good topic here.
No, absolutely. I think the timing is right. We're kind of halfway through the conversation, so I think that it's time to showcase our technical expertise and cutting edge technology that we have crafted for our chatbot. So yeah, go ahead. By the way, folks, I created the UX and Tulu coded it. So Tulu, are you ready to activate it on your end?
No, just to be forewarned, Roland, I'm not a coder, so just it's got an arm missing. Anyway, let me just activate it. Okay, ready?
Ready.
Boom. Okay, let's go.
It's still standing.
It's coming. It's coming. If you have any questions for Rawlison, for those of the audience, here's our chat bot. And okay, if you have any questions for Rawlison, make sure you send them on Twitter right here.
Wow.
At DojoLIVE. Okay, so this chat bot is fully Twitter integrated, right? So you should not have a problem at all. So if you have any questions for Rawlison, ladies and gentlemen, just send them over on Twitter. I'll read them right here. Back to Rawlison, and then hold on one second. Let me just up below the frame a little bit so you can see the chat bot. So I was saying that if you have any questions for Rawlison, just go to Twitter. You know how to use it. And just send them on and send them. I'll read them right here. Rawlison can respond on the spot or at a later time because this is going to be on DojoLive's website. Okay.
So,
with that being said, Yeah. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
While we wait on the questions, I have one question to ask.
Sure, absolutely. Oh, hold on a second. Hold on a second. We need to.
I gotta deactivate the chat bot.
Yes.
Oh no.
Yeah,
By the way, if you don't want to use Twitter, you really should get off the line.
absolutely.
Okay, ready? You're on the wrong show. Okay, here we go.
Here we go.
Oh, what the?
There you go.
It makes
Wow.
noises. That's new.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, was our chatbot.
All right, thanks. Thanks, Carlos. Go ahead, Chris.
Okay, so my question is, what vertical markets are best served by your product, Rawlison?
All of them, to be honest. We have them from everywhere. We have customers that within finance, within healthcare, within military, you name it. We are trying to solve a problem which impacts everyone, not just in any particular vertical. Information is now, it's considered the new oil. So it needs to be protected, treated, consumed, accessed, processed as what it is. And to do that, obviously everyone is impacted in that same particular way. So we're trying to provide a solution for information, for the management of applications and secondary data, specifically on that particular aspect, which is something that affects everyone. In the survey that we release, which is basically, to the enterprise, about 900 folks participated on there. Everyone is suffering from the same problem. They see it, they understand it, and obviously being able to address that, regardless of what vertical they're in, it's something that's it's going to take some time to fix. And at least I think we have a good grasp, a good sort of vision to address that. But it's going to take a lot more, because it's not only just in the technology itself; it has to do with operations and how information is going to be managed. Because it'll impact the way compliance, and we have things like GDPR and all these things that are coming along around the world. And managing information can become very costly if you don't do it correctly. You get a fine from a GDPR fine that could be 4% of your revenue. Imagine these large corporations; it would be millions and millions of dollars. So this becomes a huge problem, regardless of the vertical where they're in.
Right, and people often overlook that, so it's very important.
Yeah.
Yeah, in a way, those regulations are actually helping companies like yourself, I would think. But I'm more interested in, okay, let's ask the question a little bit differently. Where are you seeing more traction? Which vertical you're seeing more traction? I know it's vertically agnostic, but where are you seeing the most use right now?
Finance, healthcare, and commercial. I could almost tell you that's kind of which one out of the three is number 1, 2, 3. It's pretty tight, because
so it's mostly B2C companies that have massive amounts of customers and transaction. And interesting. I mean, in banking, I know it's a tough one because you have such disparity, and you also have literally walls between certain data points, depending on which part of the bank you're doing business with.
Correct.
They have a lot of legislature regulations, and that's a big challenge. So how is that helping them kind of harness some of that information in a way that they couldn't do it before?
So one of the things that we do pretty nicely, and listen, we have some of the largest banks in Canada, or the largest bank, and some of the other financial institutions within the United States as well. Some of the things that we provide is the ability to see the information within the data that you have stored within the platform. In the past, when you wanted to store information, we protect it, we put it for long-term retention, we send it somewhere, and if you want to get something out of it, we have to get it back. It's a process. That's a timely process, it's a costly process, it's a risk, because the more copies of information that you have everywhere, it becomes a much more of a risky approach, because you can leave something behind. And think about a bank doing something like that. We have the ability to sort of, through the way in which our technology works, to provide visibility into information which is considered dark. So imagine that you have a bank where it's looking, let's say, I should not be able to store any credit card number, PCI compliance, right? In the data that I have, particularly within the platform in this particular segment or whatnot. We have the ability to let them see that, so they can actually take an action on that particularly, and do something that helps them avoid any significant sort of fine or anything like that they may have, or they may come across. And that's just a simple example of that. It could be anything they were looking for.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
So any questions from the audience, Carlos?
Yeah, well, we're still waiting for some questions. One of our guys here, well, he said he's crafting his questions right now. But while he does so, I have a question, Rawlison. And, well, One thing though, since as I mentioned at the beginning, before we went live on the air, I don't have an engineering background, so my question is kind of open or kind of generic, tending more towards the business side of the equation. In today's topic, well, you mentioned teaming up with market disruptors to help fight back. Okay, now considering that the expression itself of market disruptors, well, by definition, market disruptors is anything but conservative. You know, it would not be a disruptor if it were conservative. In that sense, Rawlison, what I would like to ask you is, in your vertical, in your space, how do you go about convincing, let's put it that way, convincing conservative environments to adopt, to change in your vertical or in your platform?
I typically present the problem we fixed and demonstrate it. Not logically, not hypothetically, not theoretically, but basically show up and say, you have this problem, or in this particular vertical. I'll show you how our platform particularly applies to your problem that you have today. There's always a conversation and the talk about you're, a disruptor, you're a new company, all of this. But the belief in what we're doing is so strong that the partnerships that we have, the companies that back Cohesity, those type of partnerships are coming from companies that have been around for a very, very long time. Huge companies, huge corporations that have been around and will be around for many, many, many years. So they put their stamp of approval behind us, which makes it a lot easier for us to kind of come and talk to newer customers to say, look, think about this. Because the problem we are really fixing, beyond just the data, the mass data fragmentation, which is just one aspect and kind of something that's becoming a major thing because it's not going to go away and we have to kind of start trying to get a hold of it now. There are other areas of the platform that we address and fix, which appeal to different businesses, different verticals, different enterprises, depending on their sizes and their capabilities. Because we simplify everything. And the hardest thing in technology, the hardest thing to achieve from a software standpoint is simplicity, right? Simplicity is the hardest thing to achieve. Simplicity means ease of operations, reduction of risks. People feel better when they're doing it. They don't feel like if something goes wrong, it's too challenging to do something else. The morale of the folks that kind of manage information, trust me, I used to, before I joined Cohesity with VMware, I worked at a bank. Managing information that's sensitive is something that people stay up at night, and not being able to do it effectively kind of ruins the sort of, the morale in the teams and some of the things that they do because of it. So it's a lot of sensitive stuff. And to have something that you can rely on, believe on, and some of the people that have created it, that are proven innovators, such as Mohit, it holds a lot of weight and it kind of helps out.
Thank you so much, Rawlison.
My pleasure.
Sure. We have a question, and by the way, this is from one of our guys internally, from Rodrigo Yanez. He's the CTO of the company. He says, I got him on Slack. Hold on one second. He says, what would you consider a leapfrog moment from your company and the markets you serve?
Leapfrog moment.
Yes.
Well, we have a leapfrog moment. I just can't tell you about it right now, but it's coming.
Oh,
I mean, your AWS partnership is a pretty big deal.
I mean, the AWS stuff that we did right now is huge because now we're talking about, look, we have the technology now that I remember maybe 10 years ago, let's say 10 years ago, when everyone was trying to adopt cloud and it was a replatforming, moving things to the cloud to be cloud native. That was a nightmare. There was a lot of missing things, a lot of components that it took a lot of work and a lot of effort to get working, right? If you wanted to move an application from on-prem to a public cloud, it was kind of a tough thing. We have technology right now within the platform, which is native to our platform, that allows you to port applications natively to AWS. If whatever's running on premise, you want it to be natively running on AWS on its AWS format, whether it be, including the conversion process, the application API changes, all of those things where now the application just basically gets instantiated in AWS and you're good to go. So those capabilities are kind of leapfrogging kind of scenarios.
So you mean to tell me I don't have to rewrite? I can just convert?
Correct.
I got to let that sink in for a second. That is huge.
Right.
So think about it like this. Think about it like this.
I'll tell you, I was there in the very beginning when Axiom created the world's first cloud computing and big data platform. We didn't even have a name for it, right? There was 8 guys who knew how to create this thing. This is back in '94, I think, whatever it was. I'm dating myself. And it was just like mind-blowing, moving to a cloud environment or a distributed environment. But that's huge. So because that's a bit of limitation, right? If I build an app and then I for me to put it on AWS, it's a huge endeavor. So if I use your platform, I can just
convert it the way it is seamlessly. Think about it like this. It's a bit more challenging to also.
Okay, can you repeat that again, because that we should quote that. We should quote that, guys, because that's a big deal.
Oh, absolutely.
Can you just repeat that again for the audience, and then we should probably tweet that, Carlos, because that's a big deal. Go ahead.
We can convert. We can take your applications from on-premise and put them on AWS very quickly, and convert in everything else without any problems to your application whatsoever.
Wow.
Awesome.
Wow.
Oh, Tulu, we have another one from.
If you think about the what it takes to do that, not everybody's infrastructure is the same, right? So when you go to
of course, you know what it takes to do that.
I'll tell you. I'll give you some of the details. So here's this. So if you have an application on-prem, and if it's running in a virtualized type of infrastructure, whichever the flavor might be, typically VMware, most likely, AWS runs something completely different, right? Their formats for their applications in the cloud native AMI is completely different than what it is. The conversion process from that changes the inside, the architecture, the components of the actual virtual components of that particular VM instance of what it might be. That also has an impact on how your application that you have will work, because your application will be probably written to the specifics of that particular platform that you may have. To do those changes, it requires a lot of manpower, effort, and to do a lot of effort and do some of those things that can be done, but it's challenging, can be tough. We are offering the ability to basically say, I'm going to take you from on-premise, running on VMware, and I'm going to put you natively on AWS, on whatever the AWS format is that you want, with your application working exactly the way it was, as it was, within minutes or hours, depending on the size of the VM that you have. That simple.
Carlos, just before you go to the next question, I'm going to just highlight that also, if I hear this correctly, that also opens up an opportunity, right? Because I have clients, for example, that are purely on AWS Lambda. They're running building their application on AWS, which has its own challenges, right? So what you're saying is I could build an app on Node.js or whatever, something that's more readily available, and then use the platform to convert it on AWS. So I can actually build an AWS-specific application outside and use the platform to convert it over.
So the conversion
opens up a lot more in terms of the stack on how I build products or how fast to build products.
Right.
I just want that to sink in because.
But remember, if you're building applications and services, those are services that will continue to work as they are. When you build those applications and those services on top of some sort of virtual abstraction layer, which in this case would be a virtualization platform.
Got it.
You will be able to utilize all the services back and forth as they are, regardless of where they're actually placed, whether it be in AWS or back on premise, as long as the connectivity is there and availability to kind of get onto that. But it's that simple. And it sounds nuts, wild, but trust me, it is exactly what I'm telling you. It works.
I love it. I don't usually get that excited on these interviews, so that's a pretty big deal. So congratulations. Congratulations. Now, Carlos, I think you said there was another audience question. Please go ahead.
Absolutely.
And then I have to wrap up because we're running. It's always running out of time when we're having fun. Okay, go ahead, Carlos.
Yeah, we only have one. Well, we have time for one more question, which also came from Rodrigo, our CTO. And Rodrigo's asking, how is AI, I assume it's artificial intelligence, going to change the landscape of your industry and your company?
We recently released our SaaS-based engine, sort of manager of managers, which is called Helios. Helios is a product that leverages AI and machine learning to predict the behavior in which the infrastructure or the relative jobs or functions that are working within the platform to help and assist in everything from meeting service level agreements, making the moves globally across every Cohesity cluster platform that's connected to it, and to assist and facilitate not only how things are working or managing it, but giving you the information, giving you access to all the APIs directly, making suggestions on what things should be done, capacity planning, so that you never run out of space when you need to deal with information. Moving information, I think, will be something that we're going to work on, something that I can tell you now it's kind of future-like. How information will move, will be replicated, will be sustained, will be managed, will be something that we're going to explore to allow our engine to deliver that for our customers based on compliance, based on policies, right? Taking that into account, so things will be in compliance with either data sovereignty acts. Information can be replicated between certain network segments because let's say Canada, the US, things of that nature. So all these kind of things will now become something that we can have and depend on AI and some of the machine learning we have in there, which essentially is what's needed. We can no longer manage information today as humans in an effective way, because the growth is exponential, and it's really hard to do that, and to do it in a safe way. We're going to need some help, where it's what our team is currently working on, but we already have a platform. We have a solution that does that already, and it connects to, regardless where it is, cloud, on-premise, it doesn't matter.
Cool. Well, we're out of time. I have one last question. And it's a toss-up between two. The question that came to mind was, who would stand to win by acquiring you guys?
I'll tell you what, we're not for sale. Mohit is.
That's what I had a feeling. I'm like, well, why wouldn't the AWS just buy them? Okay, so then that brings me to the other question, which is, any words of wisdom you'd like to share with the audience today before we wrap up?
Manage your data effectively. Managing information is critical. Find a solution that delivers safety, helps folks deliver results that you need. Do not don't be stagnant, or do not find it acceptable to no longer have visibility to your information, because if you do lose visibility to your information today, you'll lose the edge for your business. You'll lose the edge to potentially save someone's life. Having access and visibility to information ubiquitously, which is what we provide and deliver, is something that the world will need. The world needs today. And things like this should be really considered at every vertical, not just one particular or anyone, but just every vertical should look at the information and kind of take into account some of the things that we can do and take a look at it.
Roland, thank you so much for joining us today. We could go on for hours.
Oh, yeah.
I'll definitely have to connect with you offline. I'm back in LA, but
got it.
Thank you for joining us. Very excited for what you guys are doing. Congratulations on all the success. And back to you, Chris or Carlos, to wrap it up. Thank you.
Sure. Well, before I pass it on to Priscilla, just one quick announcement. And this week is it's what we call a triple whammy week, which means we're going to have 3 guests, including this one, including today's. Tomorrow, except that the only change is going to be the time, which is 3 p.m. Pacific time. Tomorrow, we're going to be speaking with Julia Hawkins. She is the CEO and founder of a company called Cabinet, which is a social network for administrators to find unique local recommendations on hotels, restaurants, and car services. Of course, this has to do with travel tech, which is one of our verticals and one of our strongest areas of focus. So that's today, folks, at 3 p.m. And yes?
And then that's tomorrow.
That's tomorrow, Tulio. That is correct. The only difference is that it's going to be at 3 p.m. Pacific.
Okay.
So
Wednesday. What's the big deal Wednesday?
Oh, Wednesday. That's a good one. On Wednesday, we're going to be featuring Basil Elatal. Basil Elatal is the CEO of a company called TripHop, which is also travel tech. We're going to have him at 1 p.m. Pacific. And the cool thing about this is that we're going to be interviewing him not here, not on a broadcast, but it's going to be a broadcast, of course, but he's going to be live, physically present at the office. So Tulio, Wendy, Priscilla, you guys are going to be chatting with him right there on the spot.
Well, it's not even in the office, because we have our team building week. It's like a big deal this week. So it's going to be at the country club, but the team building event. And it's going to be the celebration of our 150th episode. So It's going to be crazy.
Wait, at 149?
148.
Bummer.
Yeah. No. Well, actually,
you're a winner, Rawlins, and you know it.
Well, actually, I think we're celebrating our 150th.
We're celebrating, but it's not 150th.
Yeah, it's like about 153rd or something. But
so I wanted to tell of that celebration.
You might be the 150th.
We just want to be celebrating, because
I'm in Vegas, folks. I'm in Vegas. I'm in the right place for the celebration. Come on now.
Cool. Yeah, that's that.
I like it.
Okay, cool. With that being said, Tulio, that's all I have for today, folks. So keep an eye on upcoming interviews, and then just stay with us on Dojo Live. And now I'm going to pass it on to Priscilla to wrap up. Thank you so much. Rawlison, can you stick around with us after we go off the air for a minute?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Priscilla.
Okay, so Rawlinson, thank you so much for your time. I really enjoyed this conversation, and I'm sure my co-hosts did as well. And thank you, everybody, for jumping in. We'll see you on our next episode of Dojo Live. Bye-bye.
Connecting experts like you.
Like you.
Right. Thank you so much, everyone. Bye.